What's up, everyone? Welcome back. This is episode 15 of the Government Coins podcast. Y'all, season two, it was crazy. I have to say, it was crazy. We had a lot of really good episodes, and we're just continuing to build up on it every single week. So, this week, we're going to get into that. But as you all know, I am Shakia. I'm one of the hosts of the Government Coins podcast, and I'm also the founder and CEO of GovVA.
Hey everyone, I am Chris Lee Julian, also known as Chris Lee Ganthier. I am also one of the hosts of the Government Coins podcast, and I am the principal consultant at Chris Lee G Consulting, which is a human capital firm that focuses on data analytics. Also, I am the founder of the Black Bunker Program, a program designed to help businesses like yours understand the complexities of doing business with the government.
Yes. So today we brought in someone who's going to speak to a topic that most people are unaware of or they have questions about. So we always hear stories about, oh, I won this contract, I won this $1 million contract, or I can teach you how to win $1 million contracts. But a lot of times we don't get into the weeds of what comes after that acquisition phase of doing business, and then also the contract award process, because there's a process in which you actually get audited by the government. No one's talking about that. So that's why we brought Joe in today. He's from DCAA. Joe is going to tell us more about himself, the DCAA, in the process of auditing and doing after being awarded a contract with government agencies. So Joe, would you mind giving the people a little bit more? Let us know who you are. Tell us about you.
Yeah. Hey guys, how are you doing? It's really great to be here. I'm really excited. This is actually my second podcast that I've ever done. So this is really great. So my name is Joe Greger. I'm the Small Business Program Manager. I work for DCAA. If you've never heard of DCAA, that stands for Defense Contract Audit Agency. I started my, if I mess up, can we do it again or no? Or is this go straight through? Okay. I started my career about 19 years ago. I was talking to Shakia earlier. I can't believe it's been 19 years. Originally grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I moved to Northern Virginia for my position. So it's been fun ever since. I've been an auditor. I've been a supervisory auditor. And then recently, before I, was working in this role, I was a branch manager. And so we audited a lot of small businesses. So I have a lot of experience with small businesses. I sort of understand what you go through. A lot of the audits that we performed were for small businesses. And then it's been about 5 years, I think, 4.5, 5 years, I rotated into the small business role, and it's been really great ever since. Before the pandemic, I traveled a lot, gave a lot of presentations, give a lot of training on the various audits that we did, and really help small businesses out, help them understand the audit requirements. But it's been really great.
Got it. And you say you are from Pittsburgh.
I am. I am a big Steelers fan, a big Pens fan. So, it's been great. We're in the playoffs. Pens are in the playoffs. It's been really fun. So,
well, we like I said, I told Joe earlier that I don't have any loyalty to any football teams. I kind of just go wherever, whoever's winning.
I'm like, whoever's good. I'm like,
yeah.
Whoever's good and whoever my cousin is playing for. So I kind of just leave it at that. And but I'm very excited to have Joe here to speak more about not only his experience, but his role at DCAA as the small business coordinator, the small business program manager, and some of the things that he's had to go over for small businesses to be able to, prepare for an audit with government agencies.
Yeah, absolutely. So, within my role, my primary function is really to manage the small business program. And a lot of my responsibilities really deals with providing training and really helping small businesses understand the regulations. So I do a lot of training. Like I said, I have a lot of training partners. I work with a lot of local PTACs. I don't know if you've heard of them, Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. We do a lot of training with those folks. I'm actually partnering with DAU, Defense Acquisition University, for the summer. We have a summer series that we're doing. So, a lot of my effort is really just getting the word out, is really just educating and training small businesses, helping them understand the federal regulations, and also kind of help demystify some of the things that kind of surround DCAA and kind of the things that surround government contracting. So I think that's a big part of it. I take a lot of calls and emails and that kind of thing, and just really kind of help demystify some of the issues that are surrounding federal contracting.
Got it. Okay. And then DCAA. Let's talk about DCAA for a minute, because when we initially reached out, I was aware of what DCAA stood for, but I was also unaware of the different components that comprise of the agency and the requirements for the audits. How you, even earlier, you spoke about multiple audits. I said, wait.
Right. So DCAA, Defense Contract Audit Agency, basically we're a DoD agency. We operate under the authority, direction, control of the DoD comptroller. And our role within the procurement process is to perform contract audits and other financial services to DoD. And by the way, we actually work for non-DoD as well. But our audit services goes towards the contracting officers, the procurement officials, those individuals that actually award contracts. They have to make procurement decisions, and sometimes those decisions are financial related or audit related, and that is our role in the process. We provide the audits, we assist those individuals in making those decisions. And bottom line, government contracts are really taxpayer funded contracts, so we want to make sure that the taxpayers are getting great value for every dollar that we're spending, right? Because like I said, these are all taxpayer funded contracts. So that is kind of our role. We kind of want to make sure we protect taxpayer dollars and we get great value for the goods and services that we're buying.
Got it. Okay, so in today's episode is going to be different, everyone. So if you are listening to this podcast on your phone or you're driving down the street, when you get a moment, you are going to need to take some time to go to YouTube, because Joe actually has a presentation for us, and he's going to take us through some of that small business training, really bite-sized, just so you guys know, but bite-sized amount of the training that he does for small businesses to really understand the process and why these audits are important and where these audits come into place.
And also, I'd like to encourage everyone, right? So just because DCAA really runs under DoD and some non-DoD agencies, one of the biggest lessons I've learned is if you operate your business as if it were in the federal space, and do that for those state and city contracts, trust me, you will clear your audit. So a lot of the softwares, the accounting management softwares I use is already certified like by DoD, and also many of the large agencies in these cities, their funds are federal funds. So they actually follow DCAA processes. So if you are paying attention, I think it's important. Yes, I talk about a lot of city and state, but DCAA regulations really run a lot of small, large cities and large states, like in New York City, for example. So it's important that you pay attention to those things.
So Joe, do you?
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. I was
Absolutely.
Gonna say, Joe, you share right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen.
All right.
All right, and just let me know if you can see it. All right, how's that? Can you guys see that?
We can see you now.
Perfect. Excellent.
Good.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. So, I have a short little introduction here about DCAA. Again, if you've never heard of us, I think this is a great intro. When we think about the function of contract audit, we got to go back all the way back to 1965, actually prior to 1965, because, DCAA didn't exist. Okay. The function of contract audit actually was decentralized, and all of the services actually, performed their own contract audit function. In 1964 was when Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara decided that the function of contract audit could be performed more efficiently and effectively under a single audit organization. So as a result, in 1965, DCAA was established by transferring all of the existing contract functions from each of the services into a single contract audit agency. And, of course, the benefit of that is small businesses, even large defense contractors, when you interface with DCAA, you're only interfacing with one organization, one set of policies and procedures, et cetera, et cetera. So it's actually a good thing that we have, just a centralized audit organization. So moving on, this is our mission. As you can see, it says, together with our acquisition partners, we increase warfighter capabilities by delivering high quality audits and financial services to achieve fair and reasonable prices that protect taxpayer dollars, right? So, I mentioned earlier, DCA's role in the procurement process is we, through our audits and our financial services, we achieve, we make sure that DoD is getting the best value for every dollar spent, right? And that's important because taxpayers are actually funding these contracts. So we want to make sure we get good value, right? I think everyone can sort of understand that. So moving on, if you look at DCAA from a very high level, we have about 4,600 employees. We're located all throughout the US. Primarily here in the US, we have about 300 offices. But we do have some overseas offices as well. I know there's one in Germany, and then there's one in Hawaii as well. And trust me, I've been trying to get to the Hawaii location for a number of years now. That hasn't come through yet, but I'm still working at it. So this is our DoD organization. As you can see, DCA falls under the authority, direction, and control of the Undersecretary of Defense Comptroller. Our placement, as you can see, it assures our independence from offices that have procurement responsibility. So this is important because every audit that DCA performs, we must follow, very strict government auditing standards, and one of those standards is independence. Okay. Now, again, this slide here just shows our organization. It's a little outdated. Our director, Miss Anita Bell, is actually retired, and right now our deputy director is our acting director here. Okay. Again, moving on, this slide just shows, kind of regionally, kind of geographically, the various regions that you have. Okay, we have a central, western, eastern region, and this basically just means if you fall within one of the regions, then you'll fall under that audit cognizance within DCAA. Okay, so for example, let's say you live in Texas, your business is in Texas, then you'll fall within the central region. And then, like I said, we have many offices throughout the country, and again, specifically where you fall within Texas, you'll fall under one of the many offices that we have. Okay. Now, for a lot of small businesses, let's say you're putting in a proposal against a solicitation, a lot of times the government will ask you for your cognizant office. Okay. So a lot of small businesses have the need to know who that is, right? Who your office is. So we actually have a locator function on our public website. You can go here and actually find who your office is. Our website is www.dca.mil. And then under the locator tab, you'll find this page here. And then you can just search by your cage, your DUNS, or your zip, and you should be able to find your office that way. Okay. Moving on. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the audits that we can perform, right? There's a number of audits that DCA can perform. And generally those audits are broken out by the different contract phase. Okay. Now, in the proposal phase, right, before you get awarded the contract, DCA can actually perform some audits, right? Some businesses don't know that. For small businesses, the most common audit that you'll see in this stage is what's called the pre-award accounting system audit. Okay, and this is important because if you want cost reimbursable type contracts, okay, so contracts where it's cost reimbursable, right, then you're required to maintain an accounting system that can do certain things, okay? And if you look at the criteria, there's 18 criteria that you have to follow, right? So things like you have to have a timesheet, you have to charge your expenses appropriately, right? You got to make sure that you preclude unallowable costs from contracts, right? There's all kinds of things, but the point here is DCAA can perform an audit of your accounting system. And so as a small business, this is important because you really got to know what those criteria are, and you have to make sure your system complies, before we come out and perform an audit, right? That's really important. Okay, now kind of moving forward into contract performance, this is really, I think, the bulk of some of the audits that we can perform. I won't go through all of these because, quite frankly, as a small business, some of these audits are not applicable. Okay, so for example, cost accounting standards, right? You may not know this, but cost accounting standards, if you're a small business, you're not required to follow CAS, right? Cost accounting standards. And that's a good thing because CAS can be very complex. There's a lot of very prescriptive requirements with that, and it could be very daunting for a small business, okay? But I will mention one thing that most small businesses will see is what's called an incur cost audit, okay? So again, if you're awarded cost type contracts, then what you'll see within the clause of the contract is the allowable cost and payment clause. And that requires that you submit what's called an incur cost proposal 6 months after the close of your accounting period. Okay, so that's very important. Okay, no one's gonna, tell you, DCAA isn't gonna come call you up and say, oh, hey, by the way, you're required to submit your incur cost proposal, right? That's something that small businesses sort of need to know when you have cost reimbursable type contracts. Okay, so that's just one example. I'm sorry?
I said, and you said 6 months.
Correct, yeah, 6 months after the close of your accounting period. So for example, let's say your accounting period ends December 31. So that means you have until July 1 of the following year to submit. So if we use, we're sort of in May, the May time period right now. So let's say you have cost reimbursable contracts, then you have about another, 90 days or so, right? But to the end of June, early July to submit, right? So that's something that you want to think about, okay? And then at the end of the contract, I wouldn't worry about too much there. We don't get involved too much. On occasion, the contracting officer may ask us to perform some audit support, but that's not a huge area for us, okay? Let me go ahead and move on. What I do want to talk about and let you guys know is the resources that we have available for small businesses, okay? And our public website recently was revamped. We actually included a new small business section, and we've included some small business presentations, all right? So as you can see here, there's all kinds of audit-related topics, okay, out there. So I highly recommend you check out the website. If you're interested in some of these areas, I mentioned accounting systems. So if you want to get more information on that, you can go there and get that presentation, okay? Some other resources that we have some guidance, we have some checklists and tools, right? I mentioned the incur cost proposal. Well, guess what? If you've never put together an incur cost proposal, we have what's called an ICE model, all right, incur cost electronically. And basically it's a model, right? It's sort of a shell of the submission that you could use. So instead of starting from scratch, you have at least something that you could use to put together your incur cost proposal, right? So there's that, and there's a lot of other things as well. So again, recommend checking this out, okay? This is what the small business section looks like. It's on the top right of our header. As you can see, the presentations, we have some frequently asked questions. We also have a small business seminar. So, I do a lot of training, like I mentioned earlier, with a lot of my training partners. I have a list of my upcoming seminars out there. So if you're interested in attending one of those, feel free to check that out. Okay,
Yeah,
this is my contact information here. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, if you can send us that link to the list, we'll definitely share it as well.
Absolutely, I'll definitely do that for you. And if you need to contact me for whatever reason, if you have questions, concerns, I get a lot of emails, about accounting systems or incur cost proposals or indirect rates, et cetera, et cetera. If you have those kinds of questions, by all means, please shoot me an email, give me a call. I'm here to help. I'm here to support. And so yeah, I can share this information as well with you too. And so that's the end. It's a fairly short presentation, but that's the end. And yeah, so do you want me to go ahead and stop the broadcast?
Yes, you can stop the presentation now.
Okay.
I'm sure Chrisley just came off mute, so she definitely has some questions.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I'm always asking questions from the point of view of a small business owner. A lot of our viewers, and we want to make sure that we touch our audience directly, right? A lot of our viewers are small businesses that might be that one man, one woman show. And so what is your piece of advice to them as to means of building systems and processes to ensure that they have an effective, audit?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that I would recommend first is to number one, understand those regulations that are applicable. So if we're talking about accounting systems, know what those are. Okay, and I won't get into every criteria there, but things like timesheets, right? Things like how do you plan on recording your direct versus indirect costs? Those things are very important. Okay, now sort of the foundation for a lot of that is the system itself, the software. Okay, you have your chart of accounts. That's really important. So I would highly recommend you get your chart of accounts in order. You know what that is, because that's really the basis for a lot of your cost data. And then finally, what I would say is make sure you have great policies and procedures in place. Okay, so policies and procedures will help your company, your employees, will help you guide through how you plan on recording and accumulating a lot of your cost data, how you plan on treating your cost accounting data, things like unallowables, right? That could be a whole topic in of itself, talking about unallowable costs, but that's really important. So I think having really strong policies and procedures that address all areas of the company and how you operate, I think is very important.
Got it. And in terms of the software accounting systems, realistically, a business could use any of the software accounting systems on the market as long as the chart of accounts is good. So basically having a bookkeeper to help them get everything set up, right?
Right,
That's what
right.
you're saying, Joe.
Exactly.
So even if, it's your initial, having a bookkeeper to help you get everything situated,
Absolutely.
that's a place to start. So I just wanted to make sure, because a lot of times there are a lot of different accounting softwares and solutions on the marketplace currently. So, find one that works for you, right? And just make sure it's set up properly.
Yeah,
no, you're absolutely right. Finding, and that's one of the things I find too is, a lot of small businesses think they need to get the most expensive, Dell Tech or Cost Point. Those systems run thousands of dollars, and they're, extremely robust, and there's all kinds of modules, and, it can be very complex, right? But if you're a one-man shop, two-man shop, do you really need that complexity?
Yeah.
Do you need to spend that kind of money? Probably not. You can probably get away with QuickBooks, and be fine. Like I said, as long as you have those other things in place, like your policies, procedures, chart of accounts, if you're not familiar with accounting principles, then yes, getting a bookkeeper or maybe a CPA firm, I think, is a great idea. So yeah, absolutely.
And I say this all the time, is if you can get one big thing about like smaller or more marketable platforms like a QuickBooks, they easily speak to other timesheet systems. So if you want to use their other timesheet systems that are like quick and easy, they are compatible. And so it should auto speak to your accounting process. That is a big thing. So every time, we swipe our business card, we have to allocate it. Yes, Deltec does have a lot of features, but there are now, Deltek has made some affordable packages. I don't know if anybody's seen them, specifically Deltek CostPoint ERP. Definitely more cost friendly for a small business, still a little bit pricier for like the one man, two man show. But I think if you're starting at QuickBooks, find the softwares that will do, that are compatible with QuickBooks. So you are not manually entering. The more manual, the more errors, and the less likely your invoice gets paid on time. Okay. So try to get the configuration, like just that the systems talk to each other, less kind of manually editing, and that your accountant is really understanding of what it means to manage a government contract, because that's critical as well. I've seen some, Instagram accountants that are like, write off everything. I'm like, wait a second. As they're watching here, we have
Yeah.
client.
That's
So
right.
definitely have a good accountant that understands government contracting, not just accounting, but accounting for government contracting. And then build small systems, right? Like cost friendly, QuickBooks starts, I think it's like $12 a month. And then you can get something with timesheets and, to clock in and all that stuff to begin. Then as you grow, you can kind of start introducing something like Deltek CostPoint ERP, still cost friendly for a small business, in my opinion, but is a little bit more robust and clearly functions in good alignment with the federal government.
I have a few others too that are like below those cost points as well. And I will say, like, QuickBooks has the big name, but I am not a fan of the software at all. Like, I could not use QuickBooks software platform. I had somebody set it up and I still was messing it up. So I just moved on with my life. But I use a platform called Wave Apps. And then you can also use Gusto. So they are really good for small businesses. And they also and Zero as well. They also provide services where you can hire someone to do the bookkeeping for you, along with taxes and employee timesheets. And they also have CPAs that you can work with as well. So also look at different solutions like that are kind of inclusive. So cost effective, but also inclusive. So just before we move on from the accounting systems platforms, but just wanted to throw those two in there to add into it. One other thing you spoke about that I have here is policies and procedures. So when we talk about policies and procedures, we immediately think to like huge corporations, like working at corporate companies with these thick policy manuals that you have to, handbooks that you have to go through and read when you first join a company. Let's talk about some immediate or policies and procedures for small businesses to implement early on, as you are starting your business or as you are getting into the space of growing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great question. And, I think you bring up a great point too, is, policies and procedures, you don't have to write a novel when, for policies, I mean, it could be something fairly simple, right? A one page, do you really need 10 pages to describe how you want your employees to enter your timesheet? Probably not. But speaking of timesheets, that's probably one of the first areas you want to address, right? I mean, you want to make sure your employees enter your time accurately. They should be entering their time daily, okay? Because in order to have accurate timesheet data, employees should be doing it daily, and then also entering all the time they work. If they work, let's say 7 hours one day and 10 hours the next day, that's okay. But just making sure they enter all their time. So that's one example. I think that's one area that small businesses can look at with their policies, procedures is timesheets. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because that is directly correlated with the money. And Joe's the money.
It is.
Joe said,
It
show
is
me the
exactly.
money.
Yeah. And a lot of businesses are service-based, right? So the majority of your cost data will probably be payroll, will probably be labor. Obviously, if you're manufacturing or if you're in some other industry, might be a little bit different, but I know here in the US, overwhelmingly most businesses are service-based. So it's extremely important that you have good timekeeping policies and procedures.
Got it. Chrisley, did you have another question?
My other question to you, Joe, what are some of the mistakes, like common mistakes that you've seen small businesses do, as in an audit, like just any top three? What is it that we're just not hitting on?
Yeah. I'll name a few. So number one, I would say understand and know your contract terms and conditions. Okay, so once you get a contract from the government, I mean that's a legal document, right? You actually agreed with the federal government to provide certain goods and services, but there's all kinds of contractual limitations that are in the contract. So I've seen contracts that will say things like, you can't bill travel costs, right? Or they may cap your indirect rates in some manner, right? If you didn't know those things existed, then there's no way that you can comply with those requirements. And if DCAA were to audit you, and we take a look and see, hey, you're actually billing for travel costs, but the contract says you can't bill it, then we would obviously that wouldn't be a good thing. So number one, when you get a contract with the government, make sure you understand all those terms and conditions that are within the contract. Number two, when we do an audit, a lot of times auditors will ask for, supporting documentation, right? So contractors must maintain adequate support to demonstrate that costs incurred they're allowable, they're allocable, right? So all the information that you have, invoices and purchase order, those kinds of things, we strongly recommend that you keep those somewhere, right? Most businesses nowadays, everything's virtual, so that, it shouldn't be too difficult, but just somewhere, make sure you maintain all of those records, so that if you go through an audit, you can provide that information to DCA to justify all those expenses. What I find a lot of times is contractors, either they're unorganized, they don't know where information is, or if they don't have it, then, we're going to say, if you can't justify it, we're not going to allow you to bill for it. And obviously, if you can't bill for cost, you can't get paid for it. So that's important. Yeah.
I highly suggest what I do, and this has worked, so I will give everyone this tip. In your computer or drive or whatever protected software you use, you need to have these like top folders, which again, it's like your labor, your indirect costs, or like we like to call them the G&A costs. Always have a separate folder for your insurance, especially as you gain over 10 employees or contractors, whatever that might be, because you do need to keep some of those compliance documents when it comes down to workers' compensation and all that good stuff. So always, your payroll people, your insurance, indirect costs, and then the direct costs related to the contract. And that's where people get kind of fuzzy. So Joe, can you give us an example of direct costs and indirect costs? Because some folks might put, a latte from the day that you worked at the site as a direct cost.
Right.
But it's like, hey, food is not a necessity to function this contract. So please give us examples.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll sort of define what a direct cost is from an indirect cost. So if you think about a direct cost, it's an expense that you incur because you are directly working on a project or a job or a contract, right? So the fact that you're actually working on that job, if it causes you to incur some sort of expense, then that is a direct cost. Okay, so an example would be, obviously, if you're making something, then materials generally are all considered direct costs. But if let's say you're a tax accountant, okay, and you spent 12 hours on this client's return, then the 12 hours of your labor would be considered direct costs, right? So that effort caused you to incur this expense because you're directly working on that contract. So that's a direct cost. Indirect expenses are different. Generally, indirect expenses are those things that expenses that you incur, but not necessarily related to any specific job or contract. Okay, so an example of that could be, let's say you have a small office space, okay, that you rent out, okay, and your rent is, let's say, $1,000 a month, right? I'm just using that as an example. Well, within that office space, you might be working on 7, 8, 9, 10 different jobs, right? So the office space, the rent itself isn't necessarily, tied to a specific job. So in that case, that's generally considered an overhead expense or a G&A expense, which is considered an indirect expense. So that, high level, that's really the difference between a direct and an indirect cost.
Got it. Oh, this has been different. Look, I got notes over here. Oh my goodness. But thank you so much, Joe. Before I wrap up, Chrisley, did you have another question? No, okay. But Joe, thank you so much for joining us. We already have your contact information, so there's no point for me to say how can people get in contact with you. But it has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. We'll definitely have you back as things progress and as legislation changes, as new things come out, probably in another season down the line. So definitely look for an email from myself or Hannah, reaching back out to you. And did we harass you this time? I don't think we harassed you this time, but next time we may have to harass
Next time,
you.
I'll be ready for it. I'll be ready for it.
But yes, thank you so much, Joe. Again, everyone. Oh, did you have anything you wanted to leave the audience with, Joe?
I guess the only thing that I would say is, a lot of people think DCAA, we're sort of this big, bad, mean agency, but we're not.
Mhm.
We're friendly. We want you to succeed. So if you have questions, by all means, feel free to reach out to me, or, I know a lot of businesses have relationships with their audit team or their local audit office, and that's fine. Use them as resources if you have questions. That's all I would say.
Mm.
We are really here to help. So we're not against you. We're here to support you.
Got it. That was a good one. Thank you. So definitely we'll be also reaching out about different audit questions.
Absolutely. Hope to hear from you.
But again, everyone, this has been another amazing episode of Government Coins Podcast. I am Shakia Kegler.
Everyone, I am Chrisley Ganthier. Thank you for joining us. And Joe, thank you for just sharing all of your knowledge. I know our audience is definitely grateful.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you are listening to this, head over to the YouTube channel so you can make sure you check out that presentation that Joe just shared with us and get his contact information if you have any questions. All right. We'll see y'all in this is it. This is the last episode.
This is it. The season is done.
Oh, so we ended it with a bang, huh?
Yeah.
We're ending it.
Look,
we're ending it we're ending it how everything should end: audited and effective. That's how we should end it.
All right, we'll see y'all soon. Have a good one and be safe. Until next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.